Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Lost Engine Outpost. It's me, Spada. I wanted to release a video or do a video, a vlog style thing. I don't think I should be calling these things vlogs. I wanted to talk to you guys about what my plans are with the future of the channel. As you've noticed, I haven't updated the living roster. We haven't had a new episode since episode 4, and that is intentional. Look, I know that that I'm not like some big YouTuber or anything like this. This video is really just intended for my subscribers and, you know, friends of the channel, fans, whatever, that are like excited about the living roster or whatever content that I'm making. And I just want to explain to you guys where I'm thinking the channel's headed and what my plans are for the future. Let's go ahead and start by talking about the living roster. I don't know how to talk about this without going into a really, really long monologue about specifically just that, specifically just the living roster. I want to give a little bit of history about the living roster and what my mindset is about making the living roster, but I'll go ahead and start by just delivering the bad news. As of right now, until I can come up with a good reason otherwise, the living roster for MultiVersus is officially like done. It's possible that could change. I'm not dead set on that. I would love to keep it going, but let me explain my thought process behind the living roster, how I make the living roster, how that affects my ability to continue making it. My channel started out as Screen Break Entertainment back in 2016. One of the first shows that I announced was the living roster, and it was called, it was for Injustice 2. I got really excited about this idea. Basically, the idea was fundamentally, I'll make a character select screen, and then I'll let the audience themselves determine what characters end up in that character select screen. And eventually I ended up doing the living roster for MultiVersus Capcom Infinite, then Dragon Ball FighterZ, then Smash Bros. Ultimate, then Jump Force. You might wonder why, you know, I might make it for one type of fighting game versus another. And the reason really comes down to the type of fighting game, right? So anything that's a self-contained fighting game with its own lore, like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, or whatever, it's kind of hard to do that, right? Not because it's hard to predict what characters will make it to the next game. To some extent, you can kind of do that with about somewhere between 70 to 90% of the roster. But at least 10% of the roster is going to be unique characters. Something that is brand new, a character that's brand new to the lore that they're introducing through that gate. Like, what are we going to do? Predict what kind of archetype that they're looking to fulfill, and then try to predict what nation they would come from and what their design. It's really overly complicated to try to make that work. And so I just never have. But games like MultiVersus Capcom or Injustice or MultiVersus or Smash Brothers or whatever, these things are all pulling characters from an existing IP with a database of characters to pull from. And so because of that, these games are like perfect for making a prediction for the living roster. My reason for explaining that is just to explain, like, some games are better suited for something like the living roster and other games just really aren't. And that's nothing, it's not about my passion for those games. I love Street Fighter 6. I love Mortal Kombat 1. I've put a bunch of hours, at least 200 hours into both games already. But even for the games where the living roster is suited for them, there's a lot of things that make making a living roster difficult. And in MultiVersus' case, before I explain what's the issue with making the living roster for MultiVersus, let me go ahead and just explain why I'm thinking of stopping MultiVersus, the MultiVersus living roster. The MultiVersus living roster, when I first announced the comeback back in May, when I said, like, I'm bringing the living roster back, just the announcement that was coming back, that video did pretty well. I think it did around 1,500 views in the first day. And for me, for a channel my size, that's pretty good. Like, that makes me feel really good. That means people like the content, they like the thumbnail and the title and stuff. I'm doing something right. I got to keep going. But then the first episode comes out, and that one got like 2,200 in the first day, and I felt really good. The like ratio was good. People were really interacting in the comments. There were a lot of votes in the polls. I felt great about where we were headed with the living roster. So I put a lot of effort into upgrading the way that the way that I edit. I did a lot more animation stuff, added more sound effects, made sure to add more clips. I was just being more intentional about the way that I put these videos together. Episode 2 got about, in the first day anyways, got about 10% of the viewers of the first one, of episode 1. Honestly, immediately I felt defeated. What did I do wrong? Was it that the thumbnail was bad? Did the title not work right? What's going on? I'm looking at the analytics. I'm trying to overanalyze everything. And I just thought, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to keep pushing through. We'll make it to episode 3. Maybe it was just the conversation itself. People just weren't super stoked about it. So let's get to episode 3. So I get to episode 3. We're talking about heroes, and it drops another half. And then episode 4 came out, and that one did half of the views that episode 3 did. So as you can see, the views are dropping, like they're plummeting every video that I do. And so obviously it's not working. And I don't know what caused it not to work. I thought about a lot of different things. It could be my release schedule, that I'm releasing like every 7 to 8 days, or every like 8 to 10 days instead of like once a week. Or maybe it's because my thumbnails are bad, or my titles are bad, or the idea is bad. And all those things are understandable. Look, I'm not a professional at this. I have a full-time job. I'm a fucking machinist. You can see like measuring equipment in the background. It's okay. I'm not like, this isn't my full-time job. I'm not a professional at this. If that's the problem, then no big deal. But to get back to what I said earlier about like the reasons that I actually think it is now, aside from me, like the components that are me and the channel and all the rest of that, there are other components that I think make it difficult. First of all, a large portion of the roster has leaked. The leaks make it very difficult to continue speculating because people already know what's coming. So what's fun about that? And then, and even so, because I've avoided talking about it, we're not even having a conversation about what those leaks are. And I'm doing that out of respect for the developers. I just really have a lot of respect for Player First Games. I don't want to play a part in ruining their hype train and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to build to. But the other thing I think is MultiVersus itself. MultiVersus has not been received super well. I mean, I'd say it's about 50-50. About half the people are super stoked about MultiVersus. I still love it. I'm still playing it every day. I've got some issues. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's a perfect game. There are some things that I would criticize, but for the most part, I think the game is really solid, and I still think it offers something super unique in the world of platform fighters. And having access to the library of properties like Warner Brothers properties makes it, I think, potentially a long-lasting endeavor that could continue to build a really interesting roster and fun fighting game, fun platform fighter. But not everybody feels that way, and a lot of people have a lot of different complaints, and that's reasonable. Everybody's allowed to have their opinions, and whatever the case is, ultimately the point is that MultiVersus just hasn't been received super well. So I think those are the reasons. I think those two reasons, the leaks and the reception of MultiVersus, are really the big reasons as to why the traffic has died down for the MultiVersus living rosters. But all that is to say, I don't really know what to do with the channel going forward, but I have an idea. I have a plan. I currently am working on this video. I've teased it a little bit on the channel, that I've talked about it a little bit. It's called How I, a 36-year-old dad, Became Obsessed with One Piece. Now, I'm a huge fan of One Piece now. My son and I have been watching it for a little over a year and a half now. We're caught up, and my wife and I are on our second watch through. And I want to talk about One Piece. I have a lot of like theories about where the story's going to end up. There's things I want to talk about, like my favorite moments, my favorite characters, aspects of the characters I like, aspects of characters I don't like, villains I like, villains I don't like, blah, blah, blah. Like all the different stuff. I'd love to make content about this. I'm super passionate about it. I have a lot of ideas of things I want to talk about. But I felt like the best way to be able to get myself into that world and be able to talk about it is to explain why it impacts me the way that it does, and kind of build off of that as, a good foundation. So I've written a script. It's a 15-page script. It looks like it's going to be like a 20-minute video, maybe. It just depends on how I edit it and everything. And I don't exactly have a super clear vision for how that's going to come together, but I have a vision. So I'm going to start recording this weekend, and I'm going to start working on the video. If everything goes right and editing is super smooth, then I would expect that video in the next week or two. But until then, this channel is going to be dead for a little while. And I just want to make sure that you guys know that. Now, I'm not against continuing to make the living roster about other fighting games. If Marvel vs. Capcom 4 gets announced, if a new Injustice gets announced, anything like that, a new Smash Brothers, whatever, I would love to continue making the living roster, but I've got to be able to do it in a way that's conducive to the channel's growth and the community's growth. And right now, doing it for MultiVersus just isn't that, especially in proportion to the amount of effort I'm putting into the video versus the turnout for community interaction. Living roster is gone for now, It could come back if I feel like it's viable and if somebody can give me a good reason to bring it back. But beyond that, I'm not done making content. I'm going to keep trying this. And like I said, I really want to talk about One Piece, and I want to open up my channel to being able to talk about other things. So we're going to give this a shot. I'm going to release this video. My plan is to release it on this channel. If I change my plan on that, I'll let y'all know. But if you're a fan of One Piece, this video is going to be probably super fun to watch because you'll hear my journey. But if you're not a fan of One Piece already, and you're wondering just the answer to the question, why I, as a 36-year-old dad, became obsessed with it, I think that the way that I'm writing this and the way that I'm making this video is spoiler-free enough that it'll tell you a lot of things that are really, really cool about the story without ruining the major plot points that make that story so rewarding to invest yourself into it. But yeah, that's it. That's everything. This is a little bit long and rambly, so I really apologize for those of you that don't have time for this. But anyways, thank you guys for coming by. Thanks for hanging out. And like I said, if you have anything to say, if you have got anything to add or whatever, let me know down in the comments, and reach out to me on Twitter at Spada_LTO. And like I said, I'm going to continue trying to find ways to make content on the channel, and just let me know. And I just hope that you guys are into it. So we'll see. But thank you guys for coming by, and I'll see you guys next time.